Welcome to the second in my series of videos on the DJI Mavic Air 2 drone. If you want to have a look at the unboxing video, I'll put a link above and also in the comments. But this one's about setting the drone up. Well, technically it's also about the things you need to do before you set the drone up and before you actually take it out to on flight. I'm going to go through a few talking things, put some screenshots up, and also when we get to the setup of the drone, I'll be sharing some screen footage from my phone as part of the setup as well. I've got the core components laid out in front of me. So we have the drone, 4 propellers, 2 of each type, and we'll go through those a little bit later on. The controller, and a little label there which we'll talk about a little bit later on. There's a couple of key things you need to understand before you start setting the drone up, and some things that you actually have to do before you go through the setup process, otherwise you'll get part way through, have to stop and go and complete them. One of those things is making sure that the battery is charged correctly. So the drone has a battery installed and it comes with one installed. So all I've done earlier on is taking that battery out and put it on charge. If you get the Fly More package, it's really important that you charge each battery for the first time directly from the power brick rather than the power hub. As I mentioned in the unboxing video, these are intelligent flight batteries and they have some micro circuitry installed in them. And it would seem that part of that circuitry puts the battery into hibernation mode for shipping, and that can only be released by using the direct connect charger rather than the power hub chargers. So just bear that in mind. There's a few other things we're going to go through now, but the important thing to remember, the Air 2 is greater than 250 grams. So therefore in the UK and quite a lot of other countries, you have to register to be able to fly this drone legally. And we'll go through that process as well. All the links I'll be talking about and that you'll be needing, I'll be putting in the description section. They'll also pop up on screen appropriately if I get a screenshot on there for you. But don't worry if you can't remember them or you need them later, they will be in the description. So I've done the first part of the pre-setup, which was to charge the battery. The second thing I had to do was register on the DJI website and get my DJI account. So just go to dji.com, click on the little person icon and select register. Enter an email address and a password to use. You're going to need those again later, so do make sure you either make a note, use a password manager, or remember what they are, and complete the registration on that process. Next thing I went and did was download a few things. So I went to www.dji.com/Mavic Air 2/downloads, and I downloaded the app for the iPhone. I'm an iPhone user, both iPhone and Android apps are on there, and I use a link in there to download the app to my phone and got that installed. I opened the app up on my phone, clicked on the profile button at the bottom and logged on using the email and password I set up earlier. And that registers my phone, my account and everything to dji.com. The moment they don't know I've got a drone, it's just set up there ready for me to use. While I was on the download site, I took a look at the DJI Assistant. It can be downloaded. I've not found a particular use for it from reading all the materials yet. It can be used for upgrading firmwares on the controller and on the drone, but also that's already taken care of by the Fly app. So it may be something you want to download for future use. I downloaded electronic copies of the booklets that came with the drone, and importantly there is a full manual on the drone. It's about 54 pages, and I downloaded an electronic copy of that and gave that a quick scan. It's got some really useful things in there about more detail about how things work, and that's where I got the information about the batteries, the intelligent batteries, and how they do things like hibernation mode and drain the battery when it's in storage mode. All that's available in the manual. The next thing I did is checked up on all the compliance rules for flying drones of this category. So again, it's over 250 grams. You need to register. So not only do you need to register as a flyer with the Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA, you also need to register as an operator because you own the drone. I'll put the links in the description. It's quite a long one to read out. I'll pop up a quick screenshot as well for you to take a look at. My first drone, first time I've ever really flown one as well. So the first thing I did is register as a flyer and take the theory test. It's not a complicated test, it's not a difficult test, but you do have to pay attention. So don't try and fit it in 5 minutes. Get a drink, sit down and have a go at it and try and complete it. Ideally, by the way, a non-alcoholic drink. Once you get that, you get given a flyer ID. The next thing I did is then register as an operator. It's a little bit more of a process around it. There's no more tests to take. The flyer test is the main one. The operator ID one does have an annual charge of £9, and that's actually so they register details about you as a person and the fact you have drones. Out of both of those processes, you get given IDs, so you get given a flyer ID and you get given an operator ID. The operator ID has to be clearly visible on your drone in case of an accident, in case it's found, or in case of an investigation. And there's some guidelines on where it can be put on. You could just write it on with a Sharpie pen or another type of pen, but even the CAA recommend you using some kind of removable label because they may change your operator ID at some point in the future, and it's hard coded onto the drone if you write it on with a pen, or also makes it harder for you to sell the drone safely in the future. So what I did, I decided that what I wanted actually was some kind of ID showing that I was a registered flyer and operator. Again, you don't have to, there's no regulations that say you have to be able to prove it with an ID, but it does make things a little bit easier, especially as members of the public become more aware of the regulations and ask more questions. So I went to a website called thedroneidcard.com, put in my details around my flyer ID, my operator ID, and from them I got a photo ID badge with all those details on, and also, which is what this is here, is a label for me to put on the drone. In fact, I got about 10 labels, maybe 5 long ones and 5 square ones, so I've got plenty of spares as well. I'm going to find somewhere to put the label a little bit later on. I will be obscuring the operator ID during the videos, by the way. Doesn't seem highly confidential, but I also don't see the point in just flashing it all over YouTube at the moment, which is why it's upside down. What I will do is I'll put a sample up for you to have a look at that uses the one that the drone ID card people use to demonstrate how it works. So there's sort of the mandatory things. Register yourself as a DJI account, get the Fly app installed, register yourself as a operator and flyer of drones with CAA. There's a couple of optional things I wanted to do as well. Discuss this in the unboxing video, but I decided the additional drone cover. First drone, brand new purchase, it's quite a big investment, and I want to make sure I've got some level of insurance against damage or for repairs or wipeout on the drone. There are two options. There's a DJI CAA refresh, that's around about £79. But as I mentioned on the unboxing, I bought my drone from HeliGuy. Got really great service from them. They actually have their own version of the DJI CAA refresh called HeliGuy Repair Refresh. It's a little bit more expensive, it's £99, but also if you buy it at the same time you buy a drone, you do get some discount on that. And the actual drone repairs and replacements seem a little bit cheaper under that scheme. But I also wanted to try and support a UK-based business. I bought my drone during the COVID crisis, and lots of businesses are suffering. DJI get money anyway, and I figured if I support HeliGuy in this, based on the service I got from them, helps keep them going, and they'll be there to support me in the future if I've got any questions. I'm hoping I never ever have to do a review of the repair refresh, because that would mean I'd have to then therefore send my drone back for repair, for damage or replacement. The final optional thing I did is I looked at drone insurance. So the repair refresh is more about the physical damage to the drone and replacing parts. What I looked at more is the liability style insurance. As I mentioned earlier, the public are becoming more and more aware of drones, more conscious of them, more questioning of them, and a lot more of trying to understand what the rights are for flying drones. And sometimes they make mistakes, sometimes they have opinions that aren't backed up by rights. But I decided if I'm going to be flying mine out where the public may come across me, again, I'm not intending to go and seek out places where the public are. I wanted some type of insurance. I did a bit of search around and there are a few options on there. In the end, I ended up on the Drone Cover Club. The process itself was simple. I can't really gain comment or recommend them over any of the ones. It was just a simple process for me to go through. The cost seemed okay. It has liability insurance and a few other bits of insurance in there. And they do validate your operator and flyer ID before they actually give you a certificate. So you can't just sign up and get the insurance. They actually do a validation process on you as well as part of that. So I have that as well. I also paid extra for another ID for that. And the whole point is, if I am out in an open space and a member of the public comes up to question my right to be able to fly there, first of all, I should know my rights already by having chosen that place, but I'll also have some ID with me to prove that I am a registered drone flyer and I have insurance. Some confidence, some evidence around what you're saying does calm people down in the public places. So that's all the preset. That's everything all set up. And what we'll do now is start having a look at setting the drone up. I'm going to start by just moving the parts to one side and making sure out the way, and then we can focus on the steps I'm doing as we go along. And I'll bring the parts back as we need each one. If you remember from earlier, I said the only thing I'd done with the drone is taken off the battery to give it a charge. So let's have a look at the type of protective coverings that the drone has with it as we go through. So there are some quite highly visible stickers on the drone, on the top and the bottom and the side, and again the one on the bottom here, and the one on the bottom has some information about the gimbal protector. It's quite important, and I may not have known this until I'd either read this or I'd seen some videos on it, but the gimbal is actually covered by a plastic cover that is supposed to come off. You are not supposed to fly on that, and I'm going to show you a little tip that I've come up with to make sure I don't ever fly with one of those on as well. Okay. So let's start with the ones that don't have letters on. So let's take that one off there, and it does say make sure you charge to activate. That one comes off, and let's take the gimbal one off at the bottom. Now, I'm not going to be planning to take the gimbal off during the setup. I'm indoors. I'm not intended to spin the rotors up. Take the A off and the B off this side, and the A and the B off this side. So I'm not seeing any more stickers. Oh, naturally there is one just down there, one there as well, and that'll be because we haven't opened the propellers up yet. So let's start with opening the propellers up. So we bring these two forward first, and then these two swing down, and that's it, standing there. We've got some more stickers then. So these come off here, and there's one on the side here as well. And then the same on the other side, and on there as well. One final check for stickers then. Not seeing any. So the battery has two little clicks on it, one each side. You press those in and that comes out, and that's what I did earlier. There's nothing in there that prevents the battery connecting. I checked that earlier. To go back in, just goes in and you give it a good click down. Part of the intelligence inside the battery does prevent the aircraft from starting if the battery is not seated properly, so that's quite a useful thing as well. What we also have are these little plastic covers on here, and they're just protecting the propeller connectors on there as well. Let's talk about the propellers then. Mentioned a couple of times now in this video and also in the unboxing video that there are two types of propellers. I'm just going to show you both those types now. And if I move them a little bit closer to the camera, hopefully you can see this one here has like a silver ring around it and this one doesn't. And that's the two differences. You have two of each, and it's very important you understand where they go on the drone. They can control how the drone flies, how the lift and the airflow work. If you get them on wrong, your drone will be unbalanced. Put those to one side for a moment, and what you'll see on your drone is you have on the propeller mount two with a little silver ring and two without a ring. I hope that makes sense without any further discussion, but let's just cover it anyway. You get the ones with the silver ring and they go onto the ones with the silver ring. Putting them on is fairly easy. Leave them closed and you line them up with the propeller and you hold it and you twist and they go on like that and don't come off. Okay, so we'll do that with one without a silver ring, and what you're looking for is on the propeller there's like a little bit of a lip in there. You put on and twist. You have to hold the propeller a little bit where it's going around here. It's not too bad on that one. Second one with the silver goes on at the front. Press down, hold and twist. Just give it a little bit of a tug to make sure it doesn't come off. And the final one on and twist. And that's it. There are the propellers on. If you're going out for flight, you would normally open them up. But again, because I'm just doing setup, I'm going to leave them closed. Maybe just tilt them into the aircraft a little bit so they're not taking up too much space. What we should then do is just check how much battery is in the drone, and you do that by pressing the button on the top here once, and the number of lights that come on indicates its battery strength. So all 4 lights came on there, so the battery is at 100%. I will put the drone a little bit further away, try and leave it so you can see most of it, but what we're going to do now is move on to the controller. There's a few things we have to do with the controller. Put the joysticks in, get the cable for the phone and attach the phone. We'll do the joysticks first. They sit in here and just squeak out by pulling like that, and then they go into here and screw in. You probably don't need to do this for initial setup, but it's a good thing to get used to and practice. That goes in there. So what I'm going to do now as well is turn on the recording of the screen on my phone, and I'll be able to show you what's on this phone perhaps a little bit better than using it via the camera, and you'll be able to see some of the steps we go through. What we're going to take a look at now then is setting up the controller with my phone. Let's put my phone there. So at the moment it's an iPhone 11. Let's go through some basics on setting the controller up. One of the first things we should do, again we don't need to for setup, but maybe it's good practice, is to get the thumbsticks out and put those into the joysticks, and they basically just pop out like that and then screw in. Next thing to do is connect the phone. So we have a little phone holder that pulls out here, pulls out so far and stays, and the rest of it is pulled back in the elastic to give your phone a good grip. And what we have in there is a cable, and what we want is take the connector off, which doesn't have the little icon on it, which is the lightning connector to go into the phone. So connecting the phone, it's a case of slotting it in and then pulling back and holding it there clearly, and then we plug the lightning connector into the bottom of the phone. Simple as that setup. What I'll do now is load the DJI Fly app, rotate it around the right way, and you can see that's now up and running. It's logged in as my profile already. One of the downsides of the app at the moment is it does actually display your location based on the address, which is why that is erased out on the video you're watching at the moment, because it does have my address in there. Controller's in normal mode. Everything's okay. So the next thing to do is to turn the controller on. So we will press the button once, so you get the battery indicator, and then press and hold, and it starts turning on. It goes through its boot up process. And then what we want to do while it's doing that is do the same thing from the drone. So again, press once, press and hold. And we get a bit of motion from the drone. LED lights come on. Boot up sound. And there we go. It's found the controller, it's found the drone, the app's connected, and I now get all the things about agreeing to the terms and conditions, so I will agree to that. You almost would like them to make you agree to these before you buy the drone, because if you don't agree to them, you're sending the drone back. Okay. Is that my address? Again, that's blurred out here, and it is my email address. It's registered to my account to create one I want to use. I click activate, and it's restarting. It's coming up again. Not going to do the DJI refresh. Click the little X in the corner and get rid of that. Makes it quite hard to get rid of. So that's take me to the store. Cancel that. Cancel that. Confirm on that one. Aircraft is activated. And now what I do is get the firmware update. So it wants to update me to 1.0.0250. Added some extra functionality there around focus track, ability to track subjects by dragging a box around them, 8K hyperlapse in RAW format is quite useful. Prompts around when you're having GPS interference, very useful there. You don't want to be having issues with the interference. Okay. And reduce noise on HDR. We'll click update on that. We'll leave that going. I'll give it a little bit of a speed up on the video you're watching, so you don't have to sit here and watch it go through in real time with me. Bit of a successful beat there, hopefully. And firmware installed. Okay, now what is the question? Do I close down the firmware screen? Okay, click the little X on there. With a big tick button. None of those seem to be doing anything. Try again on the X. There we go, that has got it. And that is it installed, activated and firmware upgraded. I'm not going to take it any further now. I'm in too close a section to be doing any flying at all. So let's go through turning things off. Press once again to see the battery. Press and hold. And then it turns off and goes quiet. And we do the same thing for the remote. Maybe didn't do that quite. There we go. That is the remote turned off and the aircraft turned off. So now we just unplug the phone and take it out and close that up. Wrap the cable around and plug it in, tidy up. When we put that away, we might as well just take the little joysticks off and they go back underneath here, ready for the next time. Something like that, and that's the controller done. For the drone, reverse of what we did before, so they come down, and what I'll do is put those in the middle so they rotate around, and these just slide backwards. I'll put those over there. That is the drone done. What I will be doing is putting the operator ID label on. I'm thinking of somewhere around this area underneath here, putting it onto there. I'll try and demonstrate that later if I can, or you'll see it on another video. Just been going through pre-flight checks and other things that we need to look at, and there's a few steps that I didn't cover earlier, so I'm just recording those now. I'm going to add those on, and so you'll see them at the end of the video. For me it's a little bit later, so set up slightly differently. Just sped through some of the setup. So the drone's out and ready, and the propeller arms are out. The controller I have got here, but I'm going to keep that a little bit off screen because all we're doing is hopefully repeating some steps. we've seen earlier. So it turns out on the Mavic Air 2 that the batteries themselves have firmware in them and actually do need updating with the same as when you did that first firmware update. So what I'm going to do is turn on the drone, turn on the controller, and that is all connected. Of course, what I don't actually know is what order the batteries I did were put in. This one hasn't come up asking for a firmware update, so I'm going to assume that one's okay. So power the drone down. And swap the battery out. And I'll put them in that order and the other way around. Hopefully that'll sort out. So that's the second battery in. A little bit. And we are starting up. Turn everything off. And then there was one other thing that I needed to also look at potentially, and that is the fitting of an SD card. So in the slot down here, you've got a mini micro SD card slot, and I don't have an SD card in there. So now I have a 64 gig U3 card. I'm just going to drop that in, figure out which way up. There we go. So labelled downwards on the card, and that's in there. So that's a 64 gig card ready for later. So that's everything set up. You notice I have the gimbal guard off at the moment, and that was so the aircraft can go through all of its checks, but also so I could fit that to the gimbal guard. This is a reminder of the fact that I need to take it off before I fly. So my daughter's made that for me, and I have got that ready to go. I'll put back on shortly. They're all the additional bits I could think of. Thank you very much for watching. Give the video a like, with a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're enjoying the content for me. My next video will either be a walkthrough of the controls and the features on the drone, or some actual flight and takeoff videos, just depending on what order is, and to be honest, what the weather's like. If the weather stays as it is, I will try and get out. If it gets worse, I'll stay inside and do another video. Thank you very much, and see you soon.